This is a U.S.-China media brief produced by the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. The U.S.-China media brief features interviews with experts and other prominent individuals involved in studying and documenting the dynamic and ever-evolving relationship between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. I'm Russell Leong, Director of the U.S.-China media brief of the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. Okay. I'm Russell Leong. Today, welcome to the U.S. China Media Brief. We're very happy to have Professor Gaochao. He's a professor at the School of Government, Sun Yat-sen University. He received his PhD from the University of Chicago, and his research interests include the politics of work in China, the micro-foundation of the Chinese Revolution, and comparative politics. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Russia.
Yesterday, you talked a little bit about migrant workers, right, based on your survey. Maybe you can kind of summarize for us some of your findings.
Well, the survey is a study of the migrant workers in Guangdong. And we did this survey in a continuous 4 years. And each year, just right before the Chinese Spring Festival, we organized students to conduct surveys in the train stations, in bus station. In that way, we can really have a non-constrained access to the workers. Otherwise, just like in any other countries in the whole world, it's very difficult to get into factories to interview workers. So the finding of the main finding of our study is actually several folds. On the one hand, you can see typically is the working hours longer than the national labor laws definitions. In our study, if you ask workers how many hours you work, on average, how many hours you work each day, typically is around 10 and a half hours. This is especially during the high season, which is by the end of the year. In Guangdong, most of the factories what we consider the made in China factories, they have to fill the orders for the Christmas gift stuff. This is why they typically in that kind of system they have longer hours. In terms of the salary, interesting enough, on the issue of salaries in our study finding is a bit of surprise, because on the one hand, for the questions of the wage delay, which is a typical situation in all the so-called former socialist countries. I knew scholars in England, they have done continuous study on the it's called wage delay study. The workers typically do not get their wages on time. That was the case in China a couple of years ago. It's became a crisis actually, but and then government kicked in under this kind of social pressure, and very strong measures has been adopted by the government from the top down to the very bottom. And so in our study, interesting enough, there are only, if I remember correctly, about 15% of people did not get their wage on time. Well, 15 for those people, of course, is very bad. But if we look for the changes, it's a very dramatic change. In that case, I would see government's macro policy on the wage delay issue show impacts. In terms of how much money people get on average each month, in our study, if you put the 4 years together, you look at the average of 4 years without the further differentiations of the occupation or those kind of fine-tuned study. Just on average, the monthly income in our sampling is around it's almost 2,000 RMB, renminbi per month. So this might be a little biased in terms of, well, maybe this is the end of the season, so people work a long hour, they get more pay, or in our sampling, which not only including the typical blue-collar workers, there are also a certain percent of managerial staff, low-level managerial staff. But on average, that's the case. And you do a further study, a fine-tuned study to divide it by category, and then we can have more detailed information on that. This is that is the on average salary. If you from the other perspectives, if you look the changes over time. The first time I conduct studies in year 2006, and then the last one is the February of year 2009. You can see continuous changes. On average, each year, the average monthly salary increased by 300 RMB. So over a continuous 4 years, which accounts for about 45% increase on average salary for this for our sample. So how's that salary in comparative dollars? If you want to look at about in an international comparative study perspective. Well, there are different ways of calculating, right? One is you divide this almost 2,000 RMB per month by 6.8. That's the equivalent. How to say that? The difference rate between the Chinese RMB and the US dollars. That's one way of calculating it. But if you want to look, bring into the purchasing power parity things, and then there's a different way of looking at it. From the purchasing power parity perspective, which accounts for about 13,000 US PPP dollars per month on average. That's a rough calculation.